welcome to the Torras AI podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you a very special guest, Ramanan Raghavendran. Ramanan is the managing partner at Amasia, a global venture capital firm he co-founded in 2013. Amasia invests in software companies focused on climate and sustainability. He has an impressive background in investing in climate and sustainability companies. His career spans over 30 years in venture capital and growth equity, with leadership roles at Insight Partners, General Atlantic, and TH Lee Putnam Ventures and Insight Partners. Ramanan is also deeply involved in nonprofit causes and serves as the chair of the Board of Trustees of the University of Pennsylvania and Goodwill San Francisco Bay. Ramanan, thank you so much for being here with us.
Well, Jordi, thank you for having me on. And, because you didn't make it clear in your intro, I thought your listeners should know that I was actually an investor in your company and in Benta. And so we've known each other for many years now. And I've visited you in California and Barcelona and, other places where you live. But it's delightful to be here. And you called the AI revolution before anyone knew what AI was. And so this is just a great time for you to be doing what you're doing and for me to be here.
Absolutely. And it's been such a privilege having you on the board of directors and having Amasia's company, and you in particular helping me. So, all right, let's just start the podcast itself. So when I look at Amasia, I see the sentence, "We invest at the intersection of purpose and profit." I love that. But could you tell us, what does that mean for your portfolio, for your investors?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question, and it sounds very clever, but what does it actually mean in purpose? I mean in its expression. I think for us as a VC firm, look, we're single bottom line investors. We're measured on economic returns, but there are lots of ways to go about making economic returns. You can be a lender, you can be in various business areas. And for us, this is where the notion of purpose comes in. Of all the places to choose to make a profit, we choose to invest in companies that we think are fulfilling some larger purpose beyond just the act of creating and building a successful business. There's lots of different laudable purposes in the world, healthcare, education, all areas I have touched or invested in different ways. But 5 years ago, we really decided to go all in on climate and sustainability. And so that's what Amasia invests in. So we invest in for-profit companies that occupy this intersection between purpose and profit around the idea of sustainability. And I tend to say all these things and it sounds like word salad, and everyone wants to know, well, what the hell does that actually mean? So I'll give you examples. I'll give you examples from our portfolio. An example would be Clarity, which measures air quality in 100 cities and 60 countries around the world. An example would be Lucky Sweater, which is a community for the trading of secondhand goods. So it's reuse and recycling. An example would be a company like Three Dots in Singapore, which is now the leading B2B food marketplace in Southeast Asia, with a specific focus on reducing food waste. That's really what they catalyze and enable. And I just love the Three Dots example, because you could go to the Three Dots webpage and you could hear their sales pitch and you wouldn't fully understand their impact, but you'd say, hey, this is a great business. And it is a great business. But the kind of impact they have on climate because of the food waste reduction element, and food waste is a massive contributor to the climate crisis. That's kind of an amazing element of what they do. And so it's kind of a great example of great business, meaningful purpose. We come in at the intersection.
Wow, that's impressive. And most of our audience are entrepreneurs, people who work in the technical area. So they don't have that many opportunities to talk to investors, especially from within. And actually, what I would like to ask you is, How is a day in the life of Ramanan? What do you do as a
Right.
managing partner at Amasia?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really good question. If you go on Twitter, you will conclude that managing partners of VC firms actually do absolutely nothing except hang out on Twitter. Um, the days tend to be pretty full. And I'm just going to focus on my work and nonprofit day. I have a family, and that is an important part of my life, but that's another part of the pie that we can just exclude for the moment and just focus on my work and nonprofit lives. So, most of the day goes into three broad buckets. One, interacting with our portfolio companies and specifically their founders, as you were with Inventa and me. And that interaction, as you actually know especially well, isn't necessarily phone calls or Zoom calls. A lot of it with a lot of my founders, we're exchanging 100 Slack messages a day. So there's constant contact. Apologies,
Yes.
that's a dog. That's it. Can you hear the dog?
No, 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 no. I couldn't
Okay.
hear anything.
Okay, then you'll cut this out.
I will.
So, Jordy, I'm going
Maybe
to
I will
close my.
not. That was cute. That was actually cute.
I'm gonna close my door. So
All right.
I have an extremely neurotic and needy dog, and I'm home alone with the dog. So,
I
anyway,
couldn't
coming
hear
back to
any noise. Yep.
excellent, and that's because of this excellent microphone I have
That is correct.
that I'd forgotten I have. Anyway, so the day really slots into these three buckets: portfolio, interactions, and time. A lot of that is advice. In when a company's doing well, that advice tends to be around capturing growth. When a company's not doing well, it tends to be advice based on 30 years in this business of how to navigate through a turbulent period. Then, we're constantly looking at and evaluating new investments. We are not prolific. I've actually written a blog post on this. Um, I've described this part of our lives as almost a festival of negativity, because we'll meet 1,000 companies. We'll say yes to one, right?
Man.
And we make 2 or 3 investments a year. We're very selective, and I don't mean that to sound arrogant. It just means we're looking for certain things where we think we can add value, and that has the effect of making us very selective. So interacting with lots of founders, getting to know their business, coming to a conclusion about the fit with us is the other bucket. Third bucket is interacting with my team. We're, despite being a very small VC firm, I'm in the US, we have someone in Europe, and we have several team members in Singapore. So we operate around the clock, more or less. A lot of that happens virtually. So a day in the life of Ramanan, to come back to where you started this question, is some percentage allocation between these three buckets. And I'd say over the course of a year, it probably is about equal in the last two buckets, with the portfolio stuff taking up probably 50%.
Huh.
So it's 50% portfolio work, 25% new deal work, 25% my team. And obviously my interactions with my team, a lot of those are about portfolio work or new investing related work. I try and devote a fair amount of my discretionary time to just thinking. So that fits in somewhere here. And then the only other thing I should mention, just because you alluded to it, is my nonprofit causes are very important to me. A couple of those roles are time consuming. I chair the board of trustees of my alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania, whose t-shirt I'm wearing today.
Yes, I see that.
And so that is something that takes up time. But there are enough hours in the day to do all these things. So that's a day in my life.
Yeah, and by the way, I look at the calendar. Today is Sunday.
Sunday.
And we had these conversations years ago, and I remember they were always Sundays. So I
Yes.
believe your dedication, work, and capacity has always amazed me. And again, I want to give you thank you, and thank you for the audience, because they don't know what investors do, just as you say, and they don't know how hard the work is to make really
I
an
want your
impact on the
audience to know
industry.
that I did not pay you to say these things. So that's one. And second, Sunday, I don't know what Sunday is. Okay. It's every day there is some
Boy,
portion of all this.
boy. All right. So this podcast is called Torras AI. Torras because of me, and AI is about the topic, right? So the question is, it's November 2022, and the ChatGPT explodes, the large language model concept explodes, and the transformers, to some extent, changed everything. Right? So my question is, I'm assuming your portfolio is, oh my God, how are we going to benefit from that? Or how is this
Right.
going to affect us positively or negatively? So
Right.
what's been your experience so far in this amazing time?
So, our experience is sort of bimodal. There is a very small set of our companies which directly benefit in substantial ways from the dramatically increased focus on AI. One of them is your old company where we continue to be shareholders in Benta. Another one is Dialpad, which you're familiar with as well, which really went all in on AI many, many years ago and is in some ways benefiting from the increased focus. Those investments were made we're very thesis driven in how we think. So climate and sustainability came out of a prolonged thinking process around what thesis 2.0 for Amasia should be. Thesis 1.0, which was very successful, was about global expansion. And within that thesis, we still have companies that we are investors in, Dialpad and Inventa being two of them, where AI is important, central, and these companies are acting to capitalize on the interest as well as ensure that their underlying technology platforms are keeping up with the extremely rapid changes that are unfolding in the AI sphere. Changes that frankly you are closer to than I am. In our climate and sustainability thesis, which is really all we've been doing for the last 5 years and will be doing for the foreseeable future, I think AI is interesting as a potential applied technology in the context of a wider solution, but it is not the massively transformational thing that you see in some vertical areas. A good example of that, I think, is the legal space, because the legal world is so text-driven. The application of AI could actually have a very dramatic effect, right? It could bring into our I sitting here could generate legal documents from scratch that, you could not have imagined a decade ago. But if you look at a company like Topanga, one of the stars in our portfolio, which does reuse software for large scale kitchen operations in campuses, growing very rapidly, all kinds of good things happening. AI is an element somewhere in the parsing and analysis of the data, and to a certain extent, perhaps over time, in natural language interactions in the customer support arena. But you see, as I'm describing it, that's a very applied way to think about AI, right? And less this earth-shattering transformation, which I think is more the case for companies like Dialpad and Inventa. So I would say to your audience, which, as you said, is mostly entrepreneurs, unless you're an entrepreneur in the tech infrastructure space, really you should be thinking about how AI can make your product or your customer experience better. And we may get to this in your later questions, and not fall out of your chair in a complete panic thinking, oh my God, do I own the .ai domain for my company? And so on and so forth. Let's all bring the temperature down.
That makes a lot of sense. And applying this technology is skill by itself. And now, as you said, right, you are talking to a total of 1,000 companies, out of which only one will eventually be selected, right? Hence the word selective. And
Right.
let's talk about that, right? So okay, we have AI, we use this AI, our technology is based on AI. I wonder if there is some AI fatigue to some extent, and I wonder if, assuming that many of your companies that you're talking to, they bring the AI with them, um, is actually adding value, or is like, oh man, if you say AI
Oh,
once more, I'm gonna
yeah.
get out of this room.
Yeah, we have massive. You know, the thing with me, just because I've been doing this for such a long time, is I had AI fatigue the day after ChatGPT came out. Um, you know, it was near immediate because I knew everyone would just go crazy. As often happens in technology, you have these very hype-driven waves, and then things kind of settle down and the hype drains out, and then you can see
Mhm.
what the playing field really looks like and what the use of these technologies really is. Um, our life is made easier than maybe many more general purpose VCs because of our
Mhm.
sustainability investing focus. Because, you know, we're not focused so much on, you know, AI in itself, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't have to think through, you know, do I need to understand the extreme minutia of large language models? What I need to figure out is, you know, I use the Topanga example, I'll just keep using it. I need to figure out, is this a sizable market? Can you build $100 million company in it? Is this the best product based on feature functionality that has nothing to do with AI, right? So my job is easier than I think more general purpose VCs
Huh.
who who kind of need their AI bets, right? They need to be invested in these
Has to be
spaces.
some AI somewhere. We have to put money in
There
it.
has to be some AI somewhere. And, you know, what I saw over the last 12 to 15 months is a level of sort of scale of investing and valuations go with it that in some ways reminded many of us of the bad old days of VC investing, right? And so we'll just figure out over a long period. I do think, you know, they're going to be enormously valuable businesses here, and a small set of VCs, I think, will profit from them. Um, but in my daily life, you know, rather than speak
Mhm.
about other firms, speaking to my daily life, you know, AI is occasionally an important element. We recently saw a company where that was the case, and it
Mhm.
was a logical case, and it actually made sense. Um, but it's not central in the way that it is in more deeply embedded tech infrastructure areas. And I think that's something for your entrepreneur audience to really understand, which is there is fatigue, real fatigue. And so if you're in the market raising capital with a .ai domain and sort of 3 slides on AI, which basically you could have the same slides from 10 years ago with ML instead of AI, and they would be the same slides, right? So I would just ask founders to just focus on making a compelling case that you're solving a difficult problem, you're solving it well, and you can build something of some scale.
That makes a lot of sense. And you mentioned that already, companies like Totango, companies like Dialpad, which are amazing companies out of this portfolio that thanks to Amasia, I had the opportunity to also meet the executives and the founders. They are amazing individuals. So do you think you could share with us some specific case where AI has been applied in this portfolio companies?
Well, you know, and again, just to because all of this may sound a little too complicated. You know, we're a thesis-driven VC firm. Thesis 1.0 was global expansion. Thesis 2.0 was climate and sustainability. All good VC firms should evolve their theses, and we did.
Uh-huh.
And we've done very well with both
Mhm.
theses in our investing. You know, the best AI example in our portfolio is Dialpad. There's no
Hmm.
question. Um, they went very early into and truly into AI. Um, very early, they made a significant acquisition many years ago, which brought technology and a very sophisticated team into the organization, and they made it central to their core product, which is a PBX in the cloud product that competes with companies like RingCentral and 8x8 and so on. And they're now, in many ways, effectively the market leader, still smaller than the bigger giants, but growing much faster.
Wow.
And AI is central to the product.
Hmm.
And I use the product. It is our phone system. It is our conference call system. We don't use Zoom. We actually use the Dialpad Meetings product, which is AI enabled. And there's add-ons for Zoom that now do some of these things, but the Dialpad AI Meetings AI product has been producing meeting summaries and queryable interactivity with the meeting summaries for a while now. And that's just the conference calling product. That's the Dialpad Meetings, not the core PBX and the cloud product. And what they have is a proprietary database of millions of minutes, right? And so, you know more about LLMs than I do by far. And you know that, the holy grail is proprietary data, right?
Data.
Well,
that's the juice that feeds everything.
Dialpad has a lot of it. And so that's really the best example of a company in our portfolio that I think has really benefited and will continue. So, and then everyone kind of woke up to AI, right? And so here's Dialpad that's been doing it for 5 years. So that was a happy turn of events.
That's amazing. And now, you're a visionary, no? So here comes the as you are. So here's the hard question. What do you think AI will bring us in the future? What is going to happen?
I want to say this: if you run into a LinkedIn profile of anyone who has visionary in their name, in their description, please never accept the connection. I think AI will be like many other technologies. I think, there's a real fear around how this will evolve, how it should be regulated, whether the world's going to come to an end in 10 years because evil robots are going to destroy humanity. Look, I think this is just the next phase in a trend that goes back, to, arguably to Alan Turing, right? To begin thinking about how you can have human-like interactions with machines. And this is just the next step. And at every stage, things improve, things get better. And I think for many humans, our ability to extract value from the technologies that are given to us, I think they get stronger and better. I think AI will have a transformational effect on academia. And that's across the sciences, engineering, humanities, because so much of what goes on is text driven, right? So you can really accelerate how academics process information and generate new knowledge from it as a helpmate, again, as an adjunct to their work. I mean, to pick an example from the humanities, I can probably use ChatGPT or something like it to analyze 500 different translations of Shakespeare or analyses of Shakespeare and boil it down to 10 or 15 crucial points. I view that as a positive. There will always be a contingent that says, really, if you really want human learning, that same person should have read all 500 versions and come up with their own digestion and simplification. And look, this is a contingent that's been there at every stage, right? When writing was first invented, there were 5 guys in the corner saying, how can you possibly be committing this writing to paper or to sand? Everyone should memorize everything in their head. Otherwise, intelligence will shrink, right? Those people were there, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And that's true for every technical advancement. I'm sort of bullish on the idea of AI as a helpmate to all of us. And certainly I use it from time to time to improve my writing or sometimes to find information that you can't easily get from a Google search.
Totally. And we are lazy organisms, right? Just as everybody, we have to create economy on the energy we spend. And after the Industrial Revolution, a lot of energy now is done by machines. Just the mental energy is that we need to relax and have someone who is able to take that and finally dedicate our lives to stuff that is not boring. And that's the way I understand AI is going to help us with the boring stuff, which is plenty of it.
Yeah, and that's certainly my hope and my expectation is, and we've just also got to remember we're a year and a half into the ChatGPT explosion. Imagine what all of this will be like in 10 years.
That's going to be amazing. Ramanan, I want to be respectful with your time because I know you are very busy and you just told us. So I want to thank you so much for
My
being
pleasure.
with us here. Absolutely. All right. And for all the audience, Ramanan, what would be the best way for them to contact you if they wish?
Honestly, the best way for them to contact me is going to be through you. So they should find their way to you, and then you will be the intermediator. And the only reason I say that is I'm terrible at responding to LinkedIn messages. So, and I feel terrible about it, but there's so much inbound flow of information that I'm going to ask that Jordy be the intermediator.
Ramanan, I've had very smart people here in this podcast, but that's the most smartest, best answer to that particular question. So for all the audience, I'm happy to facilitate an introduction to Ramanan. If the reason for you to do it, I believe is
Yes.
makes sense. Otherwise, you don't worry, Raman. I will not add another 1,000 contacts to you.
I love it.
All right.
Thanks, Jordy.
Okay. So thank you so much. And for the audience, stay tuned. We are preparing another great podcast that's going to happen very soon. Have a very good one.